And my father always said, "It's a big deal."
I have a hard time following this.
It was time to be fearless.
Who remembers that? That's a test pattern. The year is 1966, and a 4-year-old girl, Sarah Morissette, climbs out of her warm bed, comes downstairs, goes to the television, flicks it on, and sees that. Well, there she is. She's on the right there. That's Sarah Morissette. That's her dad, Lloyd Morissette, educational psychologist, who was stunned to see his daughter up 6:30 in the morning, sitting cross-legged in front of the television, watching nothing. And he thought to himself, what is it about television that has children transfixed? Not long afterwards, he attended a dinner party at the home of Tim and Joan Cooney. They served beef bourguignon. Everybody was eating French food then because of Julia Child's new book. So, over coffee and dessert, Lloyd told the story of Sarah. And he said, as an educational psychologist, I'm wondering whether television could be used for a greater good. Could television be more than junky cartoons? Could it be used to teach? And Joan, who's a producer in New York at WNET, back when we called it educational television, she said, I don't know, but I'd like to try. And ladies and gentlemen, that was the moment Sesame Street was born. She's the mom of Sesame Street, Joan Cooney, and in a whirlwind couple of years, she drew together the money and the resources and the person power to create what I believe is the greatest and most influential television show in the history of the media, in the history of television. You know that guy on the right? Hi, ho there. Jim Henson. Jim is the one you know about, the genius you know about. But there was a confluence of genius that Joan brought together. And they attended seminars at Harvard and in New York City, seminars to create a curriculum for this new television show, a curriculum. Now, for those of you who were around at that time, watching junky television and old cartoons and Stooges reruns, nothing against Stooges, the idea of a television show for children with a curriculum is like completely out of there, out of left field. But Joan felt, and the other founders felt, that if you were going to try to use a television show to teach, you had better be able to measure your progress and to have some goals. So they looked upon Sesame Street from the very first day as an experiment. They still talk about it that way. It was an experiment. And like a lot of experiments, the people who were part of it at the beginning thought it might be around for a year or two. That's Joan Cooney. And there's Big Bird. Within a year of Sesame Street's debut on television, Big Bird was on the cover of Time magazine. And I'm telling you, you couldn't go down a street in America without seeing a child in a stroller with Big Bird or Bert or Ernie. I'm telling you, I was there. I saw it. So they created these characters that were sort of instantly recognizable to adults as well as to children. And that was by design. Sesame Street from the very start was meant to entertain and inform adults as well as children, because the theory was in this experiment, if you could get adults and children to sit together and watch the program, the child would probably learn more. And that supposition proved to be true. There's my favorite Sesame Street character, Grover, cute little Grover. I love him because he to me is all about second-born energy. I'm a second-born child, and when I see Grover, I think, that's me. Hey, don't forget me. You're taking pictures. My brother has 50,000 pictures, only 2 pictures of me. Oh, and of course, this character, huh? When I asked Frank Oz about Big Bird as I was reporting and writing my book, Street Gang, The History of Sesame Street, Frank Oz, God bless him, he said that Cookie Monster is the id. Cookie Monster is all about getting immediate needs filled. And for all of you who are parents out there or were former children, you will remember that when you're a preschooler, that's what it's all about. You need to get your needs met. So cookie, me want cookie, right? That's preschool language. Your children, as they begin to acquire our language, put 2 or 3 words together to make their first sentences, and it usually is about fulfilling a need. So now you know something about Cookie Monster. And there's Jason, a child with Down syndrome who was a cast member on Sesame Street. And, I have to tell you, I'm going to use a word here that I hope you'll accept. The producers and the founders of Sesame Street, they just had balls. They did things that nobody else had ever thought about doing. And because it was on in the early morning and maybe not everybody was watching, they did some really cool things. And that's because of John Stone, the man holding the child here. John Stone really gave Sesame Street its soul. And he's the one who thought, if you're going to make a television show that's supposed to be directed to the indigent, and Sesame Street was, it was meant for poor children, to help kids who didn't grow up in homes where there were books and records, to at least arrive at the schoolroom door for kindergarten at the same plane as their peers. So that's what they hope to do with this show. So John said, if you're gonna create a show for the indigent and you want an inner city audience to watch, why don't you create a set that looks like the inner city? So that's why Sesame Street looks like Harlem to this day. Here's the other thing about Sesame Street. It's an interracial cast, and it has been since the very first day. And that didn't go over very well in the Deep South when it debuted in '69. There were a couple of states that refused to show it. And it's sad to say, but happy to say that the mothers in those states said, hell no, we're going to have this show. And they applied pressure to their legislatures and to their public television stations. And guess what? Sesame Street aired in Mississippi and Alabama. So to this day, when you watch the show, you see characters, walking arm in arm. They're biracial. They're young women, old man, young man. It's the world as we know it, and we have the founders of Sesame Street to thank for that. Here's something interesting. The experiment that we know as Sesame Street. Oh, by the way, there was sort of the J-Lo and Puffy of their age way back there in '69. That's Sonia Monsanto and Northern Calloway, arm in arm. Think about that. If tomorrow PBS had a children's show with that, where Rush Limbaugh would be on that subject. And think about this. How about if a children's show tomorrow, a character breastfed her child on national television? But doggone it, Buffy St. Marie did, and Big Bird watched on, asking questions about breastfeeding. Sesame Street has blossomed across the globe. There are co-productions of Sesame Street in every hotspot in the globe. They've been in Kosovo, Northern Ireland, in Pakistan. Everywhere where there has been strife and trouble and hunger and intolerance, you'll find a co-production of Sesame Street. So let's talk about South Africa for a moment. Here's Cammy, an HIV-positive character who has done so much to educate children about HIV and AIDS, most especially that you can have a friend who is HIV positive and you can touch that friend. Let's see a little video of Cammy in action.
Wait, they Please, Cammy, we can't go without her. We can't go without her, Cammy.
Hey, Cammy! Woza sodlala isitimela, woza!
I don't want to play
Yini ungafuna ukudlala nathi namhlanje, Cammy?
because the other children at school don't want to play with me because I'm HIV positive. But mina ngidlale ngedwa.
Ngoba?
They say they don't want to touch me because they think I will make them sick.
Oh, but Cammy, we all know you can't get HIV just by touching someone or by being friends with them.
Cammy, we are not scared to play with you because we know that we cannot catch HIV just by being your friend.
I have much more fun when I play with my friends.
What's that again?
Woza.
Yeah,
Yes,
what's that?
Cammy. Okay. Now is everyone on the train?
Yeah.
Yes, and Benny.
Yes. Very nice.
Let's talk about another effort by Sesame Workshop in Bangladesh and Nigeria, where they've created this wonderful character called Raya. And the initiative that's going on in those countries and others is to try to get children to be more mindful of hygiene, to wash their hands, to use the toilet, to be very careful about the water that they drink. You know why? This is staggering. 700,000 children under the age of 5 die from diarrhea every year. 700,000. I want you to see some video.
ইলমো এই ইলমো হ্যাঁ রায়া আচ্ছা তুমি কি সবার জন্য ল্যাট্রিনে গানটা গাইতে চাও হ্যাঁ
আমরা এমন একটা জায়গা চিনি
সকলেরই যেতে হয়
পায়খানা প্রস্রাব পেলে
সেটা ল্যাট্রিন জানি সকলে
আমরা ল্যাট্রিন করি ব্যবহার
রাখি ছিমছাম পরিষ্কার বন্ধু আর পরিবার
করি সবাই ব্যবহার
জানি তো ল্যাট্রিন
ব্যবহার স্বাস্থ্যকর তাই ল্যাট্রিন করো ব্যবহার প্রস্রাব পায়খানা করতে ল্যাট্রিন একমাত্র জায়গা
হ্যাঁ একমাত্র জায়গা তাই ল্যাট্রিন করি ব্যবহার রাখি ছিমছাম পরিষ্কার বন্ধু আর পরিবার
করি সবাই ব্যবহার
আর জানি তো ল্যাট্রিন
ব্যবহার স্বাস্থ্যকর
তাই ল্যাট্রিন করো ব্যবহার
খুব মজা হয়েছে
So it seems to me that the folks at Sesame Workshop are doing God's work on earth by educating children, working to break down barriers, to make for a more tolerant world, a more understanding world, a healthier world. There is something called Muppet diplomacy. And that this show and this experiment continues to grow and prosper around the world. Me like.